Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. My name, of course, is Over the Potato, and I have played Civilization 7. That's right, I am one of about 40 people in the entire world out with the developers that have actually played Civilization 7. There is a lot to go over, but what I'm going to do in this video is give you a little snapshot of what is changing, what is staying the same, and in my opinion, what is a pretty substantial departure from the previous Civilization formula. There's a bunch of core sort of Civ mechanics that remain the same, but there is a huge amount of change, and I would like to highlight a couple of them over the course of this video. Before we get cracking, there's a few things that I need to make clear. Firaxis paid for my flights and for my hotel room to travel out and play Civilization 7. That being said, they have no editorial input or control over this video. I'm not obliged to give positive reviews or say positive things about this game. This is my true, honest impression of the time that I spent with Civilization 7. Now, the other thing is that whilst we did play it, and me and a bunch of other content creators did play it for about 3 hours or so, the footage that you are seeing now is not captured by me at the time. This is B-roll footage that is provided to us after the fact, so there may be a few sort of mechanics that I'm describing that don't perfectly line up with the video. If that's the case, I can only apologize, as we didn't get to capture our own footage. Now, Civilization 7 was presented to me and the other content creators that were at this showcase event as a game all about layers. Well, what is a layer? What does a layer mean in the context of a Civilization strategy game? Well, it can mean multiple things, as you will probably come to see. The first and probably most major difference between Civilization 7 and Civilization 6 is that you do not play as a single civilization. That's right, you play as a leader, and you play as the same leader throughout the entirety of the game. However, the game now has 3 distinct ages, and you can play as a different civilization in each and every age. That's right, so you can actually play as 3 civilizations over the course of a game. Now, what do these ages actually mean? What does it represent? Well, we'll discuss that in a little bit, but this is a fairly substantial change from Civilization 6, where you played the game sort of start to finish, you played as a civilization, you played as a leader, bada bim, bada boom, you complete the game, happy days. Not so anymore. There are multiple different civilizations to choose from in each age. There's multiple different leaders that you can choose at the start, but your leader does not necessarily have to stick with the civilization that you assigned it. You can play as Caesar in charge of Egypt, if that's what you want to do, and then you can transition from Egypt into, for example, Mongolia in the second age, and then you can transition to somebody else in the third age. Now, this isn't a sort of concept that we got a huge amount of information about. We only played the first age at this showcase event, so I can't really speak with any degree of authority how the transition between ages is going to work. All that I know is that the ages are going to be a major component of the way that this game is played, the way that the leaders and the civilizations interact together. Is a major way that this game is played, and that is, I would say, the sort of first layer of the game, and perhaps even the second layer with regards to ages. I honestly think this is a pretty big and bold change. I'm not entirely sure how the flow of a Civilization game is going to feel now that it is sort of subdivided into 3 stages. Now, these ages were identified to us as Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. What those really mean, I couldn't really say. The Antiquity Age is the one that we played around with, and you can see roughly the amount of technology that is available during this age. There is also specific civic trees for the individual civilization's culture, which I think is really interesting. But we really have no idea how this sort of transition works between ages or anything really to do with the next age, that is exploration, at all. We literally just played in antiquity. Something else that I should really highlight as interesting and unique to Civilization 7 is that you can now assign attributes to your leader. So I talked about how your leader sticks with you throughout the course of the game. However, civilizations change. Well, you can get specific points which can be teched into your leader. I suppose it's a good way of saying it. This will allow you to buff certain things, certain aspects of your civilization, and this is probably where I would say the most, I guess, customization that sticks with you between the ages will come from. So the way that you progress through ages and leave your legacy on the world is through the legacy paths here. So effectively, if you are able to complete specific missions, and these specific missions are split across 4 trees: science, culture, military, and economics. If you are able to complete specific missions in each of these categories, then you will gain legacy points. We don't actually know what the legacy points do yet, because we only saw one age, and there can be no legacy within a specific age. But they also, achieving these objectives also gain you scientific attribute points to upgrade your leader, and that's pretty darn cool. But as you can also see here, the first time that any player reaches this milestone, 5 age progress points are added for all players. So if every single civilization and leader completes these missions, then you will get to the next age very, very quick. If nobody completes these missions, then you'll get to the next stage very darned slowly. And there is a maximum. It's about 140 turns, I believe, at standard game speed. If nobody has, if not everybody has completed the missions to the point where age progress points haven't been awarded, then you'll automatically progress onwards. So we don't know what these legacy points actually do yet. We don't know what they mean, but legacy seems to be something that is going to be sticking with you throughout the course of the 3 ages. Certainly, that's what legacy sort of suggests, but we really just don't have enough information at this point to be able to speak to it with any degree of authority. So, a really interesting change. I would say positive, but maybe not necessarily everybody would see as positive. They have completely changed. The developers have completely changed the way that city growth and expansion works. So, really, really big change here is that builders have been removed. You can no longer build or buy builders, which probably some people feel strongly about. I actually think that the way that the city growth mechanic has been implemented works really, really well. So instead of having builders, you now, whenever you gain a population, you can immediately decide how to allocate that population to whatever tile you want. And the tiles work and can be developed in a very, very similar way to Civilization 6. You can choose to build a sawmill or a mine or whatever it is, depending on your level of technology on a certain tile. It just means that the city is much more, I guess, responsive to the fact that it has a large amount of population. No longer would you have, a massive sprawling city with very few buildings or wonders or anything around. Your city now looks and feels a lot more occupied, a lot more fleshed out, and a lot more busy and useful. I really, really like this change. Again, I think it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but it's good. I really kind of rate it. Much like in Civilization 6, you can still build all of this sort of different buildings. You can still build districts. Districts work kind of differently now. There are urban districts versus rural districts. The rural districts are your typical type of like sawmill style building, and effectively you can only have a single building on a rural tile. However, if you build an urban district, i.e. if you decide that you want to build a granary, for example, on a specific tile, then you can actually have a second urban style buildings. So you could have a granary and a monument, for example, on the same tile. So you can have 2 tiles or 2 buildings on the same tile, which again makes things feel much more busy. It also means that you can have much more sort of cross-contamination of all of the different types of resources that you're producing on a certain tile. There is a lot of adjacency bonuses. They're all brand new. It's really cool. I really, really like the changes that they've made to the city mechanics. It's great. It's great. It's really great in my opinion. But again, it is going to take a heck of a lot of getting used to if you played a lot of Civ 5 and Civ 6. So, diplomacy. Diplomacy has also changed, and I think it has changed in perhaps a good way. You now have this currency of influence, and influence is a currency that you can spend in all of your diplomatic actions. You can utilize it to get friendly with city-states, which are now called independent powers. You can use it to propose trade deals for specific things with other civilizations, which again is really, really cool. No longer can you just sort of click on somebody and say, hey, I'd like to trade X, Y, and Z. You have to have the influence to back up whatever interaction you're having. I think this is a pretty nice change. I think it means that you're not able to just sort of like spam trade offers. It means that you have to be a little bit more considered about who you're interacting with on the world stage. And yeah, I kind of like it. I kind of like the fact that influence now has a currency. I think it's really, really nice. We only saw a limited number of sort of deals that you can make with your fellow leaders. There's not that many, at least in the Age of Antiquity. At least the present build of the game, or the build of the game that we played, there wasn't that many interactions. I didn't really feel like it was super, super useful. But you can do trade deals, you can get currency, you can trade resources. It's good. There's probably more to come on that front. But yeah, I really like the change of influence. I think that's really, really nice indeed. And yeah, there's a lot to be said about interacting with city-states as well, or sorry, independent powers, should I say. You can support them, they can support you, they can become your friends. You can influence them more. All of these things you can do. Yeah, influence is good. 2 thumbs up from me. So technology works the same, but differently. The tech tree is now constrained to the age. And I'm not sure if I like that, quite frankly. You've got a civic tree, you've got a science tree, very much the same, or very much similar to Civ 6, except it is constrained to the age. So instead of, getting wildly ahead in technology, I don't think you can do that. Again, I wouldn't want to say what the transition to the next age actually means, but at least from what we saw, there is a limited amount of tech that is available during the antiquity age, and that means you can't progress past that point, even if you want to. The end of the tree is just future tech, so you just can't do anything, which I think really sort of stops civilizations from developing a huge technology advantage, which is maybe a good thing or maybe a bad thing, depending on what you think. Something that I will say though is that there are now civilization or culture specific technologies, and I absolutely love this. It means that if you're playing as a specific civilization, specific culture, you will have specific options on your civics tree, or maybe your science tree, that you can develop that will give you extra bonuses based on your culture. I think this is fantastic. It's an excellent evolution. I played as Rome, and with Rome you can get some excellent sort of bonuses for your army, which I thought was really, really cool. It means that you can go in on your opponents just that little bit earlier and just go crazy, just go. So, keeping the focus on the offense, we can turn our attention to a brand new unit which is going to be playing a mega important role in all Civilization 7 games, and that is the Commander unit. Now, the Commander unit is, I guess, a similar sort of character to the Great General, except instead of your individual units earning XP in order to improve them, what you can do is you can improve your commander. So your commander ideally stays with your units, and as long as they are within a certain range or a certain radius, then the army commander will gain experience when you do offensive or defensive maneuvers. So you can level up your army commander with a bunch of different skills, which will help make it much easier to engage the enemy. And these are some of the skills that you've seen that have applied to specific upgrades on troops in the past. There's one here, 15% production towards training land units when stationed on a district, for example. If you move the army commander over a specific district of a city, then you'll get a production bonus. There's also, defensive, offensive bonuses. There are 5 categories: Bastion, Assault, Logistics, Maneuver, and Leadership. And all of these you're able to level up as your commander gains experience. It's pretty cool. It's a little bit difficult to manage, or at least I found it a little bit difficult to manage, because there are also a bunch of movement mechanics that have been introduced with the army commander. And that is, you are able to stack up all of your units onto a specific tile. You can effectively have them all gathered by the army commander, and your army commander can move and then deploy all of the different units. Now, this was quite a challenge for me to get my head around, because I have not spent very much time with Civilization 4 at all. But fundamentally, it is quite simple. You gather everybody up, you move them to a to a specific point on the battlefield, and then you deploy everyone. Now, after you deploy everyone, you usually have to wait a turn. However, there is a specific skill that will allow you to immediately use your units after you deploy them. So you can already start to see the power of unstacking your units in a specific place, or perhaps moving them through a choke point and then deploying them. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that specific skill and that specific unit ends up playing out and being used by players. The other thing that you can do is that you can actually, for example, click on a unit. I don't think it's actually demonstrated in the footage that I have here, but you can click on a unit on the other side of the map, and then there is a little toggle over that unit, and that will allow you to reinforce to the general. And what that will do, effectively, is that the unit will disappear from the map for X number of turns based on distance between the unit and the general, and then it will appear in the army. Sorry, I keep saying general. The army commander's inventory ready for deployment. Now, is this overpowered and broken in its current form? I think it kind of is, because basically it means your unit can't be attacked. Is it kind of balanced by this, by the fact that your unit is going to be off the battlefield and therefore you can't respond to sort of changing circumstances as you go? Potentially, but I do think that is a major way or route for exploit in the future. It really is like it's teleportation effectively. They literally disappear from the map, and then 3, 4, 5 turns later just appear as a unit in your army commander's backpack. I like it, personally. I like it. I think it's good. I think it allows you to stop micromanaging units all the way across the map, and instead just have them turn up. Is it exploitable? Also, probably yes. And so, as we move towards the end of an age, you can expect a crisis to develop. Now, a crisis is something that happens at the end of every age, and effectively, it's like reverse government policies, if that makes sense. You've got your government policies much like you did in Civilization 6. These are modifiers that apply to your whole government. A crisis is effectively the exact opposite, but it only happens towards the end of the age. it gets worse and worse and worse. The age of antiquity, the one that we experienced, effectively had a whole bunch of sort of like little mini city-states popping up, and effectively like barbarian camps just sort of like absolutely running at you. I don't believe there's barbarians, by the way, or at least if there are, I didn't see them in either of my playthroughs. But yeah, crises or crises, I think, is a singular crisis, multiple crises. Yeah, they work kind of like backwards government policies. I didn't really find myself hugely worried by the crisis when it developed in my games. I didn't really find that it really moved the meter. It didn't really stop me from doing anything. But I suspect that's probably just because it's going to be balanced, and I was maybe a bit further ahead than I should have been, and who knows? But either way, the crisis happens at the end of the age, and there will be, I think, three crises, or 2 crises perhaps, and then the victory in the real game, or in the real finalized product. And you can also imagine that there's going to be multiple different variations, multiple different crises that can possibly rear their ugly head. Although what they could possibly be, I have absolutely no idea. There are a bunch of other sort of smaller changes. The art style, for example, has changed. Not considerably, but it has changed. I think the characters are animated in a slightly less sort of cartoony way. The environment definitely looks sort of more grand, I suppose, and perhaps a bit darker, a bit more epic. You can see visually throughout this video that the UI has changed slightly. There is a lot of civilization still here. You know, the tech tree, the civics tree. Religion. I mean, religion we didn't really get to grips with. Basically, you can't found a religion in the first era, but you can in the second era. More on that presumably later. But yeah, there's a lot of civilization. There's a lot of civilization sort of core concepts right here. But it does look very, very different. One other change that I will absolutely highlight that I think is amazing and really, really, really positive is the fact that rivers are now navigatable. Navigable. You can sail up and down rivers, which I think is a great change. It makes the whole world feel much more accessible. How sailing and boats tie into the sort of age of exploration, again, I can't really speak to with any degree of authority because we just didn't see it. But I will say what I saw of the terrain, it was good. It was interesting. It was unique. And I thought the fact that you can now sail boats up rivers, fantastic. Just fantastic. And so that is effectively my thoughts and my analysis of what the biggest changes are in Civilization 7 from the other iterations in the series. I think this is a game that a lot of Civilization players, you know, previous Civ 5, Civ 6 players, are really going to struggle to get to grips with. I think the age mechanics and the fact that you change civilization throughout the game is going to really stick in a lot of people's minds as something that they don't necessarily like or agree with. Now, my personal opinion is that I think it depends how it works. And at this moment, I personally don't feel like I could make a judgment about whether or not the mechanic and the game will be fun / it will work, because I just haven't played into that second age. I really wish I'd got to at least see a little glimpse of that second age so that I could give you a snippet of what the sort of transition will look like. At the moment, I just don't feel like I'm sort of qualified. I don't feel like I've seen enough to give a qualified opinion about how the game looks. But I will say this: I am really excited to see how it goes. I really think that this could be an excellent Civilization 7 game, but it really does depend on the implementation and how you are sort of able to transition. I think a lot of people's opinions will be that way, but yeah, I think probably to highlight, there will be quite a lot of people that maybe don't really like the look of what they are seeing here. But maybe I'm completely wrong about that. I would really value your opinions in the comments. Let me know what you think about the changes. Let me know what you think about the game. Let me know what you think about the video. Let me know down in the comments below. But ladies and gents, we're going to wrap this one up for now. Thank you ever so much for watching. My name, of course, has been Over the Potato. I'll see you next time.